Hi, Sachin.
Hey, Dinkar.
Yeah, this is our fourth
Yeah,
week.
actually, yes, I was actually writing my thoughts, and then yeah, it is fourth episode already.
Yeah, and I think one difference is that we are a little better planned for it. The first one, second one, I felt because it was culmination of a lot of thinking. It was almost like we wanted to get some topics out of our system, kind of thing. The third one was we were exploring, and I think this is like growing up in the maturity scale. I think there's a very specific topic we wanted to discuss because it's again something very close to us, but something very important also that should be covered.
Yeah, and I remember, Dinkar, before, I mean, like, we have been talking about doing this for a while now, and we were sure that we didn't want to do a very scripted thing,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
we wanted it to be a little spontaneous, and I think this, what we are doing is we are just adding more structure rather than script. So
Yeah.
I like this because it allows us to also express our thoughts in a better manner. But yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. I really, I think one of the reasons other than chatting with you or chatting on a topic, what I look forward for are these digressions. So I think that's important
Yes,
to have digressions.
yeah. I think those are almost guaranteed with me. So yeah, staying on topic is very difficult. So
Mm. Which,
yes,
which, which hasn't hurt us professionally yet.
yeah. The yet is the qualifying word, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think the digressions don't happen with everybody whom I work with, Tinker.
Hmm.
There is it's like you have to basically have that echoing sound coming from the other end too.
Hmm.
Is where I mean, like, yes, I can launch a digression, but if somebody else also has a complementing thought process to it,
Hmm.
that digression actually flourishes. And most of the time, our digressions have resulted into productive things.
Yeah.
Example would be is we kept talking about the product ops,
Yeah.
and the platform ops. It did not go to a place where we wanted to, but that also solidified a lot of thinking, and that would be obviously we can take in our one of our conversations. But I think such kind of digressions or even the health related idea.
Polaris, right? I mean, Polaris. Maybe
Yes,
at some point we'll talk about it. It's a result of a digression.
yes, it's the result of a digression. Yes, there were some concrete ideas which I was working on. There were some concrete ideas which we were working on. But when we started fusing those ideas together, those were the ones which landed like gold, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But Dinkar, I have a little bit more structured conversation as a follow from last time.
yeah.
So, and I'm sure it will result into some digressions, but let's try to stay to the area. So, as I requested last time, is I would like to talk about what are the journeys of ideas into product, from ideas to production. And we need to be speaking about enterprises because in startups, the journeys are very rapid and sometimes they
And
are,
they, and so much books take for startup journeys, right? There is so
yes,
much written, and I think that that is a big gap because it puts enterprises on a very weird scenario where it's almost like one that the model they are given. I was talking to a client. Something was like, "Hey, we should do some product management." I think I'm referring to we should do some product manager workshop, and the response came, I hope it's not let's make a sandwich in an agile manner, right? Because that's what every coach comes in and talks about.
exactly.
And that whole lack of contextualization to an enterprise is so missing. Yeah.
And I think in startup world as well, it is a little bit, every startup is we are different. So they
Hmm.
also follow different paths. They take the standard recommendation, but then most of the time they are diverging and their business is extremely volatile. So they have to respond way different. And most of the time they're playing for survival.
Yeah.
So it's different. But yes, in enterprise world, what this whole innovation thing and everything has forced, and the biggest transformation, the C word which we are facing right now, right? The whole world is they need to respond quickly.
Yeah.
They need to be uh, agile from a business perspective. And now the agile is not just a cool term to follow, or it is not just enough for you to say, hey, I follow extreme programming practices, or I am following some Martin Fowler's book. That's not enough anymore. What we need to do is we need to really show the results in production.
Yeah.
Are your customers seeing the things which you are talking 15 days ago?
Yes.
If the CEO is going on a public television and saying certain things, how much time it will take for that to trickle down into production based applications?
Yeah.
That is what people are interested now. So I just, in my experience, I have found there are three broad journeys of idea to production.
Mhm.
But I think these three put maximum stress upon the bridge between business and the developers,
Mm.
because the developers are mostly dealing with the after effect of it, in the sense, oh, we are completely time crunched, and I need to develop this quickly to and deploy it to production. But what they do is that they create a pressure of scope negotiation,
Mm.
and business is actually putting pressure, because either they are saying this is a business urgency, either it is a customer urgency, or is it a financial urgency, and they have these solid reasons to pressure down why all the feature needs to actually go in. So these two opposing forces, and there is this at the middle layer is the product layer,
Yeah.
where you find these business analysts, product managers, and also at times the engineering leads who are heading a division of that business, because they need to ultimately deliver the product and everything. But ultimately, the product owner's persona feels the maximum pressure, which is upstream as well as downstream pressure.
Yeah.
So the first scenario which I thought is a level zero idea, where an executive goes on to saying that I want this feature, but that feature is not translated into anywhere in the roadmap or epics, or how it actually integrates within the overall system. And some of these systems, um, with one feature which is declared by CXO, might affect five systems downstream.
Yeah.
So how it presents a varied level of challenges. And the second is basically where business trivializes a feature, saying this is so curated, all we have to do is add certain buttons onto some place. It is an extremely curated feature. So I mean, like, I think you hate the word low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
It is that kind of feature. And the third one is that often you and I have both been at the receiving end of it, is customer needs and customer pains are blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
One tweet actually becomes a feature request, and that gets blown out of proportion. But these, in my mind, these are some of the bigger challenges which ProMas handle,
Yeah.
where they cannot actually just tiptoe around this. They have to take it head on. And almost in all scenarios, I have found that ProMas end up being almost confrontationalists.
Mm.
That they have to take their position, they have to take their stand, and they have to stand their ground, saying that, hey, I would like to not do this, or I would like to do only part of this.
Mm.
So, I mean, that always puzzled me, because this seems like a difficult one. So, how do you see all these things?
So level zero, I mean, CXO asks for a feature and how does it end up in a production, right? The biggest stumbling block in that journey is the IT um, falling in love with itself.
Hmm.
um, IT converting everything into a work, IT converting everything into something like uh, uh, this is how we do it, right? I'll give you one example what I mean, and I want to spend some time here, right? This is a true story. I'm exaggerating some bits a bit for effects of dramatization, but this is a true story, right? Working with a client who has you know, a very old customer base, many years, right? And the customer base is global in nature and has evolved over a period of time. Different customers came at different time, and the data is being entered by different input methods, again, which have evolved over a period of time. So one of the side effects of this is that if you look, for example, the phone numbers, right? The phone numbers of customers. So if I'm in India, for some customers, it's +91 dash 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 dash. For some customers, it is just dash 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 dash. Mobile number for some customer, it is 0 plus something. For some customers, there is a dot in between. For some customers, there is a blank. And then add the complexity that some of these customers have US number. So somewhere it is +1, then braces 212, and so on and so forth, like this, right? It's a big mess. So it is affecting some regulations, and it is affecting the ability of the business to consistently and coherently reach out to customers. So very simple ask, can you fix the phone numbers, right? Very business urgent, because there's a regulation depend upon it, and there's a big marketing push that's going to happen, and for that they need all these information correctly. So if a customer pings them, they're able to call them back. Again, something, it's very simple. Look at the phone numbers, fix them. It's a very simple ask. It's low hanging fruit, very high returns, right? Now it comes to IT. Now IT looks at it and they realize it's a huge list, right? And what does IT do? They use the technology to solve it. So they come up with one of the options. Well, we'll do an AI analysis, and it will detect where plus is needed, where gaps are, where braces are. It will try to guess, because at some places the ISD, there was a separate, in some UI, there was a separate code for ISD and separate code for the number, right? So in that scenario, now there are two fields so they come up with a solution, and they go to 2-3 vendors. Different vendors come up with different numbers, and then the IT manager kind of creates a plan for $10 million to fix this relatively fast with 98% accuracy, right? And they send it to the business. And the first thing that compliance people say is that, how are you going to ensure that the number which has been converted is the correct conversion? How are you going to guarantee that, right? How are you going to do the recon between the two? Okay, sure, we'll get back to you. We'll think about it. Some more thinking happens, some more analysis happens. Then the business asks them, you know what, I have another option. Let me explore that option. And the IT is sitting and wondering what is happening. What the CEO did, got hold of 5 or 6 temps, I think 10 or some round number of temps, gave them the whole thing, said, fix these numbers manually. And wherever you are confused, drop an email to the customer, ask them what is the correct one. And within 2-3 weeks had the whole thing cleaned up, and it costed them 300K or something like that, right? And that was a big lesson for me, to watch this whole thing unfold. I was not involved, in the whole analysis, all those parts, but I was a witness to this, right? And from then onwards, I started seeing business problems in a totally different light, right? Business problems are, we want to do this, we want to make this happen. Now, can you go and make this happen, right? The ask is never that, can you create something which is scalable, reliable, compliant, best architecture, good technology, interesting work. They don't care about it, in the sense that it's not part of the requirement, right? At an organizational level, people do care about these. Different people do care about it, but business is like, I have this problem, solve it for me, right? And
But
there,
but the issue is, Dinkar, in enterprises, what you just mentioned, the challenge would be is, we'll go back to your example.
Yeah.
In hindsight, the problem was there were like, let's say, 100,000 phone numbers to be fixed, and these 100,000 numbers with 10 attempts, each person can actually do 10,000 each in 3 weeks time. Completely understandable. But if you go to the person who is, let's say, procurement, who wants to purchase a solution which will allow them, imagine that there is a algorithm or a system which is developed by Acme Software Engineering,
Yeah.
and they say that I have this software which you can buy for $50,000.
Yeah.
And this $50,000 software you can buy, and it will go through, you input a phone number, it will output a consistent phone numbers format
Yeah.
for your system. All you have to do is just buy the software license. You know, the procurement will run it through its paces and make it a almost space shuttle kind of problem. They will set up criteria of scalability, reliability, support, and all that thing. And then by the time that whole software comes into the system, it will be a 500K software.
No, not to say that it is that, but you know about that, the article, and then it became a book, The Rise of Bullshit Jobs, right?
Right.
Somewhere in this whole ecosystem of enterprise, knowingly, unknowingly, uh, because of siloed thinking, teams reflecting the funding. This is my work. I got funded for this. This is my boundary. I got funded by this. The whole thing has become like that, right? And the reason, in, let's say in this case, all these things came from because when something comes into procurement, they have their own checklist, right? Tuck, 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 tuck. And now this has become a totally different problem. IT had its own way, tuck, tuck, tuck. It has become a totally different problem. The problem statement is no longer that bunch of wrong numbers. Is there a quick solution? Otherwise, I'll get temps and they'll fix it cheaper, faster.
Agreed.
But that problem statement is getting messed up the moment it comes to IT, because they're seeing it as an IT problem. Procurement is seeing it as a product, a solution or a product qualification problem. And the customer is like, you don't have my phone. I get so many spams, but for this important thing, suddenly you're telling me you don't have my phone number, right? And that is the first hurdle for high level requirement that is coming from a CXO to IT. That the first thing we do it is we fail to understand why is business asking for this, what is the outcome they have in mind, and the ability to say, you know what, we can't do it. You know what, let's buy a product. You know what, hire temps to do it. Right? That thing is somewhere missing.
But
So
at
that is
what
the
time,
first hurdle to worry about.
at what layer do you feel that should be decided? Because my worry
I'm a
is
product
that,
manager, right? I'll say that there is a solution, a product manager who's responsible at some point, right? So for example, this is a phone numbers, CRM. There is a product manager for CRM whose responsibility is to make CRM a useful uh, offering from the tech to business, right? That product manager probably is missing, because today the product manager has become a part of, it, nothing against like, the scrums and all those kind of things. But the product manager has now become part of the delivery team who has set of tasks. It has become a task oriented job. You do this, you do this, you do this, you
but
follow this,
Dinkar,
this happens.
there I also have a pet peeve. During my career, I have seen that a lot of developers who were good individual contributors and who were even decent programmers, they became this software architect persona. When that happened, people actually who were software architect, who have learned architecture differently, then I am only able to code well. There are certain principles of like building systems, understanding non-functional requirements, ability to translate business problem and build only so much strength into the application for cost purposes, make the right compromises, sometimes on the scale side, sometimes on the development side, sometimes on the cost side, sometimes on the framework side. Those compromises require experience, require tools, require ability to comprehend that thing. And when a developer becomes a software architect without this knowledge,
Yeah.
I have seen that they struggle a lot. They make bad decisions. Many times they choose technical stack which is fancy rather than something which is needed by the business.
Right.
And all sorts of problems happen. Sometimes this gripe can be taken at a later stage.
Yes. Yeah.
But the same problem is with the scrums and ProMas. Not all earlier, not all software architects were truly architects. Similarly, not all program managers or product managers or product owners, there is not much differentiation.
Yeah.
People use these terms interchangeably. And that's why I was very much interested is that how uh, ProMa should even like take this certain feature request if you were managing that CRM.
So I would have first, yeah, let's go through that journey, right?
Right.
Let's do the thought experiment. So, this CXO comes in and says, we have a problem. How do we solve it, right? So probably the first question is like, yeah, why? If there is a problem, so what? World is full of problems and we cannot solve all the problems. We need to focus on, right? Why? What's happening? Hey, this is something very super urgent and all that. Okay, sounds fair. Who will use it, right? Hey, you know what? The ops people will use it to make the phone calls, right? What is stopping them from using it now? The numbers come in different formats, so we cannot run automation caller scripts. We are not sure because these are sensitive calls. We are not sure if I'm typing right. Again, we are a global organization, right? We assume, like I'm sitting in India, I know +91 is India's ISD, right? Rest of the world does not. They don't care. I know that if I look at a cell phone number and I look at a landline number, we know 080, this is Bangalore, 9 something 6 something 7, this is a cell phone. We just know it, right? Not everyone knows it. They don't know if this is going to be a cell phone. Is it a landline number, right? All these information, they don't know, right? A person whose job is to quickly make these calls, get some consent, share some information, should be spending time thinking, what is this? Is it plus here? Is it minus here? And a lot of places I've seen +91 and then in the braces there will be a 0 because that means while in the country, if you're doing long distance, you have to put so many combos, right? So you don't want to. So what is the problem? Because when they are making the call, we don't want them to focus on phone numbers. We want them to have the surety, the guarantee that the phone number is right. They're reaching the right person, right? Okay, so what? How many phone numbers are there? See, when I was describing this problem, Sachin, I was very careful. I did not say how many phone numbers were there, right? You also made an assumption, right? It's first thing like how many such numbers are there? If there were, let's say 50, and the answer came 50, right? Then what would my solution would have been? Totally different, right? So it's like how many, what is the scope of this whole business problem, right? It's affecting 100 numbers, it's affecting 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 1 million. We don't know that, right? So the first thing is there is a reason why business is asking. Uh, there's this implicit mindset. People don't always realize it, but everyone thinks that their school of thought is smarter than the other school of thought, right? Because I'm belonging. And so business thinks business is more smarter than tech when it comes to business stuff. Tech feels they are more smarter to business when it comes to tech stuff. So if I make a tech decision, you don't get it, you won't get it, you won't understand it, right? Business like, you know what, I know what I'm thinking, I'll just give you the requirement, you won't understand it, you won't, right? So the product managers are the people who break these walls, who break these silos, right? The first thing to do is to understand what is it you're trying to do, what is stopping you from doing it, what is the scope of the problem that is getting created, all these basic questions, right? And then you sit back and say, okay, now what are the options I have? If I'm a product manager and I'm part of the IT thing, I have only one hammer, which is coding, right? Make a technical solution, right? But if I'm a product manager who is aware of other things in the organization, I may be
So,
part of the tech thing.
so
I know
you're
there is
bring
operations. I know there is a organization that get there. If I'm not aware of those things, or I don't have access to those things, I'll think only in one way. Sorry, you were saying something.
oh, yeah, apologies to break, but I just wanted to say, so you are saying all the people who are at least aspiring to be product managers or trying to be at that cusp of basically engineering and business, when they want to do that, essentially they need to be first problem solvers. Forget about what hammer they choose
They
to
first
use.
need to be listeners. There is a gym in US, Planet Fitness. Their marketing, is based on no judgment zone, right? And that's a product manager. You cannot enter a conversation judging someone, judging the problem, judging the person, judging their sense of urgency. The first thing is listen, right? It's very important. Understand what is happening, why this problem is. That's the first thing,
Like
right?
basics.
That is the most basic. The second thing is then solutioning. Right now, don't use solution. So the biggest, yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm pushing everywhere that technologists should become a product manager, designers should become product managers, business, everyone should become a product manager, right? And my pitch is that once you become a product manager, the first thing you do is that you lose that position of strength. If you're a technologist, you become a product manager, you become a product, the first thing is you forget everything about technology that you have learned. Now you lose that level, but what you have to do is to gain sufficient strength in other areas, right? So there, if I was a developer and I am from a technical background and I'm part of the technical organization, not everything has to be solved by IT.
Absolutely, and I think
Solutioning
that's
has to be a little broader. Yeah.
I think that's the key takeaway, right? Is like, A, you need to be able to actively listen, understand what all the parameters of your problem are by listening intently. And the second thing is apply problem solving techniques before even you reach a solution. And then comes the solution, what hammer you want to choose, whether it is coding, whether it is hiring temps, or whether it is even get a like software which is readily available. Because the for the right size of the problem, you need to find the right size of the solution.
And
But
there's sorry, one thing I want to call out is, again, we were discussing scientific process last time, right? This first solution that you do, right? Always be very clear in your mind, this is my initial hypothesis. This will get tested. I will go with this initial hypothesis back to business. I'll go to the tech team. I'll go to the business team. I'll go to the compliance team. They will. So be ready for this initial hypothesis to massively modify or even totally change. But you have to go with some initial hypothesis. That is very critical. And just one more thing about the tools you have, right? And if you're a product manager, you need to be aware of all the departments getting affected: ops, production support, uh, client, customer support. If you have any other team which are involved that even get affected by a product 1%, you need to be aware of that team, what their capabilities are, what they can offer to your product, and incorporate all those things into your solution, at least the initial one. And subsequently, it will keep on, pivots will happen. That's okay, but you need to have that. So instead of saying a solution, because a lot of people might come back and beat me, say, why did you start with the solution? This is the initial hypothesis.
agreed. So this is when you don't even know what the solution is.
Bingo. Yes.
But then when you have told by business, this is like ready. I mean, like tomorrow a developer can start working on this. I mean, like you are a ProMa, I'm a business. I say, Dinkar, you don't even need to analyze this. This is done. It's like we need a button. That's it.
Yeah. And there again, two, three things needs to happen, right? So first is active listening. You're listening very carefully. Why do you think just a button is enough, right? For example, hey, let's think up of a scenario why business would make such a demand, for example, right? let's say people are saying, hey, someone has made this order and they're about to execute this order. But you know what? People who purchase this are very social. So can we add a button where they can share the order? It's a button, social sharing, just click a button and they share it everywhere, right? And that's a business ask. It's just a button, right? So you understand what they're thinking. What they're thinking is in terms of business atomicity, right? That as a business steps, this is a step that I buy something and then I share that I bought this. The business atomicity does not always translate into a solution atomicity, product atomicity, all those kind of things, right? Um, I think somewhere everyone understands it, and this is where the conversations become very important. You say, hey, business, yes, you're saying add a button, I get add a button. That means it is going to hold a lot of these complexities. Let me come back to you with an initial analysis, right? And your initial hypothesis will say it will be some button which will say yes. And either we will go to a partner to whom we will package this information and the partner product will go and do all the sharing, or we will do all the sharing. That means we will have to update our client information where we will want them to know, do you have Twitter? Do you have LinkedIn? Do you have Facebook? So that means we'll have to change the user's profile. That means we'll have to encourage users to go and change their profile, right? Or we will have this, which will just invoke some URLs and we will leave up to the good integration APIs of these social platforms to give us that button, where now the integration into the social is on the client. It's on my computer. So if I click on tweet this button, my Mac OS knows about my Twitter account. So it opens up very nicely and I click. If my Mac does not know about my Twitter account, then I will have to log in. So there are so many options. Suddenly you're going back to the business. Yes, it's a button. Look at the 4 options we have. Or our team will do everything. For this one, we will have to go and update CRM. We'll have to go through the cycle. So suddenly now the business realizes that with the very basic conversation of initial hypothesis, there is not a low-hanging fruit. There's nothing like a low-hanging fruit. There's nothing like just add a button. They are thinking now. They will say, you know what, this additional product will cost us money, right? Asking people for more people may not like it. Why do you want to know my information? You know what? Just add this click and we will leave up to the client. Now they have kind of come back and improved upon their ask, right? So this part, such in listening and initial hypothesis, this cycle between the business and the product manager is missing, is often a very slow process. There was an ask, let's arrange a meeting, next month's meeting. Then there's a next month meeting. Then, just do it. I don't have the time. I have told you what the problem is. Too busy for it. Again, because the product manager is trying to explain things. It's not like, hey, do you like ABC? So asking questions to busy execs is also A, B, C. Cost, benefit, B. Move on.
What do you think about product functions which are sitting in silos compared to engineers? I mean, I know that I'm not sticking to the theme because many times such kind of curation happens outside engineering team.
Yeah.
And what their job is that they wanted to just do the analysis and they don't care who implements it. And that also changes their attitude towards it's actually not constrained environment.
Right.
It is very decompressed environment. And then what they want to do is they know that my I think chain of food command, I think that is a wrong metaphor here, but I think they know that they are serving to execs.
And Sachin, actually that is happening because of one simple fact, and this is my favorite topic, is silos reflect the funding, right? So what happens is at the beginning of a year in an enterprise, you'll be asked how much budget you need, right? And then you'll do some book of work, some analysis, say, I want this much money. And then you get that money. Now you have committed broadly to some outcomes, and you have got funded for it. Now your whole focus is submitting this, right? Now, funding means there's a responsibility. I'm giving you some funding. That means you will take care of some set of people. You will take care of some outcomes coming out of it, right? So suddenly departments arise, right? So if funding will go to an IT department, will we go to an ops department, will go to a production support, right?
Yeah.
So now why? Because developers, IT is a different department. So there is a head of IT because that's a designation. So now this has become, so immediately this has become a bubble. Production support has become a bubble. Ops, you don't need techies for ops. You need people who are very business savvy, can pick up tech very easily, can handle clients, right? Are very emotionally high EQ. This is ops, different set of people, different set of capabilities, different set of this is another bubble. So immediately you have created a bubble. Now, if you look at IT, right? Typically now what is happening in IT is, and this is across banks and large non-digital natives. So in an IT department, there is going to be engineers is a group, um, program and project management is a group, product management is a group, because this is reflecting again people management, because at the end of the day, here I will look at their performance, I will draw normal curve, I will do curve fitting, some people will be here, some people will be here, most of the people, and that's how their salary will come, review and all that. So then all your product managers has a product head, who's a people manager. You need those, that's how the funding is coming, next year's salary will come like that. Now you have these silos, right? And when silo happens, some organization do this by creating virtual teams. They do by dotted lines. Now for this outcome or this product, people are coming from here. They're getting together as a coherent team. So I have a work boss, I have a people management boss, and we are executing something. But these silos, and that is quite rare, and quite some mature organizations are doing it they're getting better at it. Some of the organizations we also work for, slowly they're getting really good at it. But that, but those silos are reality everywhere, right? And the silos happen because of how funding happens. Now, you cannot change funding. You and I don't have power to change funding of how enterprises are happening. I don't think people who do funding are watching this video, and I don't think they're going to change stuff. I don't know how to fix this, but these silos are a big problem. They are undermining the value of IT. They are leading to rise of bullshit jobs. They are leading to unnecessary meetings. They are leading to unnecessary red, amber, green kind of, the smartest people are ending up doing the least outcome related job, but they have to, because that's how the system is set up. And like agile changed how organizations did development of product. We need one of our friends, he's trying to do this, the agile IT, agile technology organization. He's thinking and working on this, but we need to change how this, and for that the funding model needs to basically change. Digression on the funding model, but yes, you're right. These silos exist, and a lot of problems happen because of these silos, because one silo, it's like now these are two microservices, or these are two, REST APIs. There's a very clearly defined interface between the two. The data has to flow in this way. The data will have this kind of format. It's so cleanly defined. These two cannot come together. They cannot just access each other's private data. They have to go and access each other's public data. While in modular programming and microservices programming, all this makes sense. But when it comes to people, it's creating these silos and pain.
Absolutely. And I think that pain brings to a third point is there are often organizations are into a phase where they have launched a product and they are just trying to get customer traction. And when that happens, some exec has read some first version of email from Jeff Bezos to Amazon saying, I want you to just satisfy our customers. That's our motto. And they have adopted Jeff Bezos' vision of Amazon into their organization, right? And suddenly they start treating customers' pain as their son's pain. And then they start prioritizing everything out of proportion. And essentially, the whole rationality goes out of the window.
Yeah.
And that actually, that opportunity sometimes is also you weaponized, almost weaponized. And I'm using this phrase very carefully, is because what they do is that many execs, many business owners, many let's say business analysts, they sometimes have these pet features they wanted to get
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
As soon as the customer said it, it becomes the highest priority, and it is a non-negotiable.
I have validation now. Yeah.
Now it's non-negotiable, right? All I need is one person who wanted this, and
Yeah.
suddenly this becomes like the highest priority thing.
Yeah.
So now, in my mind, the situation is not far different from where we started with the telephone number validation.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you need to identify the impact radius of problem, the probability of it happening and all that stuff. But I'll not go into detail. Is how do you diffuse the situation if you want to do it so that the rationality comes back onto the table and you start talking about it like the telephone number problem.
Yeah. This is where such an experimenting comes into picture, right? This is where segmenting an audience to try and experiment comes into picture. And this is where, learning, all of us have opinions. We all of have gray hair, not by standing in the sun,
Yeah.
right? We have our opinions and all, but ultimate validation comes from the market, right?
Mm.
So that's where experimenting becomes very important. And that's where explaining the concept of experimenting becomes very important. The problem with experiment is, and you and me have both been in a conversation where even today, some execs think that agile is only good for experimenting and fun stuff on the side, but not really for enterprise class, world class, long-term software building, right? That thought process is even now. So somewhere this communication to these CXOs who are not jokers or idiots, right? They're making these statements because of some real experience, some understanding, right? So explaining things to them, educating things to them becomes very important. So maybe it's implicit in the word experiment that it lends a thought process that, hey, this is casual, this is experiment on the side, doesn't have a serious bearing. Maybe a change of terminology is needed when talking to the CXOs. And the best thing is, you know what, let's try this Bezos's experiment. So for this small set of customers, right, we will push every release to them, we will push everything to them that they keep asking for, right? And there is this whole other segment, and then we can start expanding on it. One digression, the other gripe I have against this, customer centricity is that nowadays it is coming at the cost of employee centricity. And that is why software that employees use in the organization is most non-intuitive, is the most intensive, like, what is that called? Carpus, repetitive stress injury, like click here, click here, click here, click here, right? Most boring work, interfaces, most inefficient way of doing things. So many times I've heard you say that, oh, you know what, their interface is Windows 98 interface, right? And that's what is happening, right? That's a reality, right? So somewhere this customer centricity is not something, is good for a startup. And there, this customer centricity is also hiding behind it a lot of other things they focus on. It's only that, how do you differentiate between prioritize between A and B local? But in enterprises where customer centricity again becomes that silo thing, becomes a weapon, that is this helping customer? No, it is going to improve user experience for 10,000 of our employees, and they will become more efficient. You know what? This small thing, because it improves the customer's expectation, becomes prioritized, right? That's the weaponization. And somewhere, there is a flaw in product management as a community, product managers, ProMas as a community also, right? All these blogs, all these sexy, founders, customer, Jeff is a customer. And, it has become a group thing. It's like, if I say customer centricity, I can never be wrong. Who will stop up and say, there are not many Dinkers around. I like, hello, sir, dude, customer centricity is not the only thing. What about your employees? I mean, I had written a blog on it. There was an organization that suffered huge financial loss because their employee software was not that was not as excellent as their customer software, and it allowed for a mistake that led to a massive financial loss. Right? In the end, you can blame the person, you can blame the employee who did that, but was employee for blame? No, it was the lack of focus on putting all the checks and balancing that you put on customer. Right? In customer, I put a space in my phone number, it rejects, it does not allow me, it quickly pops up. But in your, why you all kind of mistake, because somehow, quote unquote, by some training, employees will become non-humans and they'll never make a mistake.
Dinkar, that brings a very important point. I do not feel that such softwares are designed and the only driving factor there is that the companies were not attentive enough. I'll give you a flip side of the whole argument.
The product building company.
No, I mean, like in my experience, many times they have to, a company has to identify a product owner or a business owner, and typically the business owner is a simple plain, let's say, a trading manager or a trader. They understand domain.
Yes.
They don't understand systems. And they say,
they don't understand requirements.
You are going to work with a product owner, and the product owner will actually take instructions from you. It is like Sachin actually giving instructions to a construction contractor about how my house should be built. You need an architect in between who translates that requirement into a design,
into a vision, keeps monitoring, are you building to that vision or not?
And I think that's where the companies fail to understand, that a person who understands what they want from this system may not be adequately equipped with the experience and knowledge required to actually instruct another team to build a system.
Sachin, I was working with a client, a little bit of, I felt very good that day. I was working with a client, they did not have a position of a product manager, a very traditional IT organization. They had project managers, all this iteration. They didn't have a product manager. And I was working with them. I started playing that role, and they saw the value of it. And one of the developers, I love it when developers become product managers. Because to me, that reflects the richness of this role becoming evident to the non-obvious crowd, right? So there was a very senior developer and said that I want to become a product manager within their HR. HR had no clue what does this mean and all that. So he, to his manager, he said, I want to do what Dinkar is doing. And everyone got it immediately, because the title didn't mean anything, the write-up didn't mean anything, but the evidence of the work that a product manager does was something they had experienced. So they got it, right? And then over a period of time, I'm seeing in that organization, many people are doing product management courses, they're sharing it on LinkedIn. So I'm happy that, that thought process seeped in. It also seeped in because of a lot of positive, positivity that the leadership gave to those people. Hey, okay, we should change this, we should introduce this, at least within their domain, right? But that architect, right? If someone, if you believe that your home is, I'll make a, I'll put a foundation, and then there'll be 4 pillars, we'll put a plinth and brick walls, there is cement. there is a door and all that, then you don't need the architect, right? You'll talk to that. But the moment you're thinking that tomorrow I may add one more floor when my kids grow up or something like that, or you're worried, I live in an area where there's a earthquake happening, or what, there is this, I keep on hearing there's this regulation, you have to do rainwater harvest. When things start expanding as a problem, then you start looking for an architect, right? And that change is very critical in growing enterprises, I think. And in large enterprises, right, it's like people don't build those large buildings, they inherit these large buildings, right?
Hmm.
And then they are in the maintenance, right? What extra to do? Okay, let me do a better parking, let me on the top, let me put a shed and create a cafeteria. That's what they're doing, right? But that's not the value add. And at some point enterprises could get away with it, but the world has changed. That tall building is now being threatened by someone sitting at home on their desk working from home, right? Now they have to rethink a lot of things, right? And as workforce starts going back to offices, the old style of office constructions, the the value add that a office brought, that's also changing so much, right? So yeah, so coming back, yes, an architect is really needed. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where it is very important that all these roles start playing to their strengths. And many times in enterprises, these roles, as you mentioned, right, is these are blurred lines. These are not well defined roles, and people start doing each other's responsibilities without even knowing that they have the skills and tools and mandate to do it or not.
The
I
project
think
manager is the program manager, project manager, product manager, and
yes,
facilities manager. I don't know what all.
yeah.
That person, poor guy, is running all around. You expect that person to sit and do strategic thinking.
And many times these people wake up and then they are facing a challenge, and what they focus on is something which is tactically important to them, which is, let's say, four people have applied to leave, and now this is Thanksgiving week. I need to actually figure out how am I going to get this released to the production.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And they don't worry at that time about, oh, let me take this big fight about why this feature should not be actually part of the scope.
Yeah.
Because my energy is to actually get whatever is the current thing.
As a good product manager, you should be saying a lot of no to features.
Yeah. So I think that is where I find this extremely challenging profile in my mind. Is there is a lot of subjectivity into it. There is a lot of decision making into it, and there is a lot of making the rules on the go type of thing. You cannot actually carry a handbook which says that, hey, I'm going to do this. And in my own interpretation, these are typically the CEOs of the product, product manager, because when they start thinking of like this as a
Without much
business
authority, like CEO
without
cannot
much,
do, but
yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you ask for a CEO's job, what they will define is that my job is to make this company successful,
yeah,
whatever it takes. I don't know. Sometimes I might be focusing on only recruiting best people. Sometimes I might be focusing on only getting new customers, and sometimes I will be focusing on only optimizing my cost structure. So a CEO never defines their job. It's like ultimate authority and ultimate responsibility and accountability of that entire company. Similarly, I think the ProMas need to start thinking of their role as ultimately this product needs to be successful. And what do I need to do to make it even happen or go towards that direction? I think that would be, obviously, as you mentioned, there may not be all the authorities and powers which will actually come with it, but at least the thought process can be developed around that.
right. And that is why this it becomes important to start thinking in terms of uh, outcomes rather than tasks,
Hmm.
right? The For a lot of people, clarity of role becomes evident when you know what is it they are doing,
Hmm.
right? Why? So I can measure them on their things, so I know are they doing a good job or not, right? It's like it's still those manufacturing heritage. How are doing things? How are doing things? How are doing things? How are doing things? Right. On the flip side, the role of a CEO and of a product manager is what is it? What is the outcome? What is the outcome? That is the focus. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I think this is a good place to stop today. And Dinkar, this was a really good discussion about when I said that I wanted to understand the feature journey. This seems like a good place. So I think next time what we want to talk about is another thread from our product management discussion is about what would you advise and how we will say to aspiring product managers to think about what they need to hone the craft. I think some of the angles which we talked about today and some we need to talk about later. So yeah.
I mean, I think the focus on outcomes, behaviors to adopt, scenarios to expect, these are very important for a product manager to understand. And not the product owner, like in the agile sense, the person who's responsible. That's also an important job. I hope it doesn't come across that we are not valuing that. Just saying these are two different responsibilities.
Absolutely.
Both have their own spaces. And one of the things we talked a bit, maybe we should double click in next conversation, is how corporates can do experiments, how they can learn from it, and the other buzzword, fail fast, how they can adopt that.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And maybe we can take what product managers do in the reverse order is like talk about these features. Today we talked about scoping.
Right.
Maybe next time what we can talk about is how they can quickly run experiments and make sure that these are successful or not. Now,
Right.
You might not call yourself product manager, but if you start doing these things, probably you are doing the job of a product manager. So probably that's the right way to go about it as well.
Exactly. Cool. This was a good conversation, Sachin. I hope it feels that I talked more than you. So
Oh yeah. I mean, like this was your expertise. So, but yeah, I think it helps sometimes to. I think you told today, right? Listen. So yeah.
Oh, you were listening.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Next time.
Bye.